Welcome to Dark Horizon Creations. I'm Mike. This time we're taking a look at the G.I. Joe classified series Roadblock from Wave 1. Now, if you hadn't already, please follow, like, and subscribe to my social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Don't forget to hit that bell icon so you get a notification of when I post new content. Roadblock is the powerhouse of the G.I. Joe team. He is a massive individual, but really humble at heart. You know, he is a very personable individual, and he exemplifies all the characteristics and traits that we associate with those who serve in the military: duty, honor, integrity, loyalty, sacrifice for country, selflessness. He's just an all-around, well-rounded soldier and a great human being. And, you know, growing up watching the cartoons and looking at the comics, he was always one of my favorite characters. So Roadblock got his start in G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, issue number 22. That was released in April of 1984. His file name is Marvin F. Hinton. He hails from Biloxi, Mississippi. Now, Marvin's from a really large family, and one of the things that you'll find out is he's actually a very shy individual. And he got his start not in the military, but as a bouncer. He loves to cook, and he wanted to attend a prestigious culinary art school in France known as Escoffier. And he wanted to become a chef. So he was working as a bouncer, saving his money. And one day he was approached by a U.S. Army recruiter who convinced him that he could enlist in the military and the Army would pay for him to learn how to cook. Yeah. So if you're a prior experience, you know where that's going. So Marvin quickly learned that the recruiter was full of crap and decided he wanted to go into infantry instead. He went to Fort Benning, Georgia, completed infantry training, came 11 Bravo, changed his MOS, and took up position as a squad automatic rifleman for his squad. And ever since then, every time you see Roadblock, he's carrying the M249. At some point in his service with the Army, he was selected for selection for G.I. Joe and became a part of the G.I. Joe team. So along with Roadblock, anytime you see him, you usually see him beside Gung Ho, Rock and Roll, and his cousin, Heavy Duty. And the four of these guys make up what I call the four horsemen for the G.I. Joe team, because they just have such an intimidating presence, and every time you see them, you know, they're carrying heavy firepower and they're just plowing through Cobra, you know, standing still. Really, really awesome dudes. So this action figure really exemplifies this character. I really like this version of Roadblock. Behind him in the box, you see the Target exclusive Cobra Island subline version of Roadblock. That was released simultaneously when the Wave 1 figures were released last year. But I prefer this version better. I really like the aesthetics of the figure. I like the overall design. This is one of the figures that many fans complained about the color palette, and they went back and did a field variant where they toned down some of the pastels and things that they were using. So if you want to know how tall this guy is, Roadblock stands 6 1/4 inches tall. For those of you in the metric world, that is 16.5 centimeters. And you can see he's really cool. I like the design of the figure. I like the lion tattoo on his left shoulder. I think that's cool. And he does have knee and shin armor. His head's on a ball joint swivel, forward and lateral movement there at the shoulder, butterfly joint, bicep rotation, double jointed elbow, wrist swivel and rotation. His chest does have the hinge joint, but it's sort of limited because of the vest. Waist rotation, forward and lateral movement at the thigh rotation, double jointed knee, lower leg swivel, foot pivot, and it's on a ball joint as well. Now let's talk about accessories for a moment. Roadblock includes a fixed blade combat knife that you see here. And he includes this rail gun, and you can see I've made some changes to it. I cut off the two forward sections that contain the accelerator magnets, and I cut off the top carrying handle, because, you know, if you're going to fire a weapon, you're going to fire it from a shoulder mounted position, but I couldn't get this to work. So what I did was I took the M249 out of the Action Force weapons pack, and that's what I ended up giving Roadblock. Let's see if we can get his trigger finger in there. Yeah, there we go. And if you guys have been on my Instagram, you've seen the pictures that I took the other day of this figure out at the lake, and he looked really good with this weapon. There we go. And you can see that he can shoulder this. You can put him into a realistic shooting position where he can shoulder the weapon. That looks really awesome right there. I like that. And he is a little top heavy, but as you can see, he's extremely posable and stable once you get his feet into a correct position. You can also see that I've repainted this figure. Now let's talk about what I did, because this was one of the figures that everyone complained about, the bright colors that they used, and you know, they were upset about the color palette. So Hasbro went back with some of the Wave 1 figures and issued the field variants where they toned down certain parts of it. What I've done is I've taken the Apple Barrel Craft Pavement Gray, and I use this on literally every single project that I work on. Sometimes it's a base coat and primer, sometimes it's an accent color, sometimes it's a top coat, or, you know, it just, I found so many uses for this paint, and I really like it. So I've repainted the red sections on his vest and that gray, including the hook and loop closures on the front, his fixed blade combat knife, the sheath, his knee and shin armor, and his boot armor are all that pavement gray. You can see I've repainted the back of his vest, his belt. I also repainted his shooting gloves. I painted those in a marsh green from Apple Barrel, and then used a gray for the wrist and the hard knuckles, as well as the palm. And you can see there's some places where it's rubbed off, and that's because I didn't apply a clear coat. You know, I haven't gotten around to doing that, because once I painted the figure, I just put it in a box and left it there. You know, and again, and I'll review the Target exclusive version at a later time, but overall, I still like this figure much better. I just like the design. I don't like the beard on this figure. And many collectors said, you know, this should have been heavy duty, and I agree. You know, I think they should have made that a separate character rather than releasing a slightly different retool and repaint of Roadblock. The one thing that I do plan to do is snatch those sunshades out of there and put them on this figure. I'm also waiting to find another Duke out in the wild, and I'm going to take his holster and sidearm and put it on Roadblock so that he has a secondary weapon. So guys, there you have the G.I. Joe Classified Series Roadblock from Wave 1. Stay tuned, there's more to come.